Welcome to Inside Infrastructure. This is a podcast brought to you by the American Public Works Association, San Diego and Imperial Counties chapter. The purpose of the podcast is to inform, educate, and entertain, telling stories about amazing infrastructure projects and activities throughout both counties. My name is James Negelvort. I'm a public works professional with over 35 years, both in the private and public sector, and I love infrastructure. Joining me here today is my co-host, Ben Valdez.
Thank you so much, James. Today we're going to be looking at the historic Balboa Park Botanical Garden renovation project. This project has won many awards, including our very own APWA Project of the Year. We have two distinguished guests that'll be joining us. We have John, who is the Balboa Park's Deputy Director, and Edgar, who's the Senior Civil Engineer for the City of San Diego, overseeing public buildings within the Engineering and Capital Projects Department. Today we're going to be discussing their role on this project and some of the challenges that they've faced. Let's take a look. All right, so you guys ready to roll into it?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right, well, John, Edgar, thank you guys so much for taking the time to meet with us today. I think before we get started into this awesome project, we should take a moment just to kind of zoom out and get a little bit more of a history on Balboa Park as a whole, and then the Botanical Garden's role in it. So John, do you mind giving us that 10,000-foot point of view?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Thank you, James, for having us here. Welcome to City of San Diego's beautiful Balboa Park. And here we're sitting into the 2025 iteration of the Botanical Building. I'm so excited to be here and just have this conversation with you. Balboa Park was founded in 1868 as a city park. And so today we have about 20 million visitors that come through this park every year. And within this building, now since it's been reinvigorated, we have several hundred people who come into this building for the first time, return visitors, and they just love it. They look into this building, they see the awe, just how big it is, and they just talk so positive on the experiences that they have. They bring their families in here, and yeah, it's just fun to be a part of this.
Outstanding. Amazing. How does the building fit into the layout of the Balboa Park? You got museums, you got the beautiful park and that. What led to the concept, if you know, in the history in that, of putting the botanical gardens here?
Yeah, I don't know that.
Okay.
But the Botanical Building is in the center of the park. So you can walk down El Prado and you turn to the right, and then all of a sudden you have this wonderful view of the lily ponds that lead into the Botanical Building. All around it has the museums. So we have quite a few museums in this park, and a lot of other buildings that, some are newer designed, and then some are from the 1915 and 1935 expositions that did occur here. And this building specifically was part of the 1915 Pan American California Exposition. And so what we did was we took the original design and brought it back to what you see today.
Outstanding. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I personally have been here as a little kid years and years ago and enjoyed it in that. I'm not as old as this, by the way, but I enjoyed it in that. And today it looks fantastic in that. Can you talk a little bit about the condition of the structure was before the project and then what led to the project?
Yeah, sure. So there was a lot of disrepair in this building. And as they were designing what was needed to make those repairs, and they started diving into it and pulling things apart, they realized it needed so much more work than it originally anticipated. It started off with some steel beams and some of the lath, and then as they were pulling them apart, they realized more and more work needed to be done. So it turned into a complete rebuild of this building into what you see today. And part of that redesign was to bring it back to its 1915 glory.
And this is the first major renovation that's taken place on this building, correct?
Yes, to this extent. There were quite a few projects within this building and additions throughout the years, but nothing that brought it all the way down to the steel beams and then rebuilt out like as what you see today.
So there was a major renovation in the 1950s, and that's where the window arcades that you see wrapping around the building were removed, and the trusses were encased in concrete. And so our job as part of this project was to bring those window arcades back.
Beautiful.
And with that design, what you can see is a lot of light in here.
Yeah.
So when you came in here before, obviously the plants were a lot taller and a lot higher, blocking a lot of the light from the top. But with what Edgar was just describing, all the light in the sides of the building came back to life now.
Yeah, so that was one of the things I was curious about for the foliage actually in the building. So when you guys did the renovation, did the plants stay here? Did you guys have to move them? How did that change when you guys built the building? Did you guys swap out plants? How did that work?
Yeah, so part of the construction effort was to clear the space as much as we could. Some of the bigger rare plants that you see behind me obviously would not make that trip.
Yeah.
So we had to protect them in place as we were doing the construction. But most of the plants that we relocated them to an off-site nursery to allow, crews to get in here and work on the building. And then at the end of the project, we brought most of the plants back. And so this wing you see behind me has like most of those plants that were here before. And then the east wing behind you guys is the newer plants that we hired Nan Sturman to design.
And the nursery that he's describing is off-site, but it's within Balboa Park. So city staff operate that nursery, and so they took care of the plants. You know, they helped propagate the lilies within the lily pond and some of the other plants that they brought back into here. So they assisted and actually helped the city save money in removing the plants and then returning and planting them again.
You know, you can't tell. It looks like it's always been this way from the vegetation and that. When we toured this earlier before we start talking to you, one of the things I noticed is that I'm having a hard time telling what's new and what's old. So part of what I'm looking at, I'm guessing, has been refurbished. It was here before. It's part of the old structure, and some of this is renewed. Edgar, can you walk us through what's new and what's old? And
Sure, I'll start with some of the obvious things. So like I mentioned, the window arcades are part of the 1950 design that came back. I think my personal favorite is the wood siding that we discovered during looking at historical pictures, that it wasn't just plaster like it was, prior to us doing this project. And so the redwood really makes it look very, very nice. Yeah.
And that's all new redwood?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, gorgeous.
So some of the modern amenities, we added a restroom for Park and Rec staff. So we added plumbing, we added lighting, we added a brand new misting system, water efficient drip irrigation and spray irrigation. And one of the things that we ended up removing was the center rotunda, which used to be a permanent planter. Part of the reason is to allow the building to grow and be flexible in the future in terms of the programming that they need to do. So they have lights so that they could either extend visiting hours or they could have events. And then the center rotunda area has planters that you can roll in seasonally or remove them if they want to have events. Again, this is all things that need to get cleared up, but Park and Rec has that flexibility in the future. And then some of the hidden things that the public won't be able to see, but that I know about, and we did it as part of the project to extend the life of it, is some of the connections between, now I'm gonna get kind of technical here. So some of the connections between the wood beams that are holding up the truss structure were what we call angle seats. So they're basically like a L-shaped steel clip that was holding these members up. And we found that water was being trapped at the corner of the angle clip. And so what our structural engineers recommended was to swap that out with a flat plate with some spacers so that the wood and the steel are not touching. And when it rains, the water just kind of slides off instead of being trapped there. So we found that was leading to the acceleration of dry rot in the wood. So
Because there was basically a pocket between
pretty much,
the metal and the wood hitting,
exactly.
get a little puddle. So now they made a little bit of a gap so water flows through. It doesn't have that stagnant water and it kind of doesn't rot the wood.
Exactly. So,
the engineer loves that.
Yes, yeah. Those are the things that the public might not see, but we did it with intention to extend the life of the structure.
And how long was the overall project from, let's say, actual construction and then just the conception of wanting to do the refurbishment? How long has this been in the pipeline?
So this project was interesting in that it was really two projects in one. And I'm really glad that Park and Rec was on board. The Forever Balboa Park group was on board with us switching to a design build delivery method. For those of you that don't know, design build is a type of delivery method in which the designer and contractor are together under one contract. It allows us to do some things simultaneously as opposed to the traditional design bid build where we have to finish design first, then we can go out and select the contractor, then construction starts. That's the traditional way. Design build, we got the design builder on board, and they started looking at historical photos, putting together the design package while we were doing selective demolition. So we closed the building in January of 2022 and reopened it in December of 2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and conceptually, it's been thought of since 2013. So it's been a project, that's been wanted to come back to life since 2013.
Nice.
Well, gorgeous. Okay, I'm going to go down the path of more engineering just because I'm curious in that. A project like this, when you do it, you're trying to maintain the history, the historical element of it, but you're also applying new codes, seismic, ADA, you name it. Tell me about the challenge of trying to implement new codes in your design, but also still respecting and restoring the history of the building.
And for our listeners that aren't aware, can you go into seismic and ADA and what that means as well?
Correct, yeah. So the code does allow you to get away with a couple of things that make sense in terms of seismic. The structural integrity of the building was actually pretty good. They used a historical code in which that the building has pretty much withstood the test of time, and part of our calculations, we did have a little bit more structural reinforcement in that the truss structure tied back into the window arcades that you see behind me, so that it added a little bit more structural stability. And then a couple of other changes that we made, which are allowed under the code, is we shortened the length of the truss base. So before, I don't know if you guys knew this, but the planters were, in 1915, were all the way to ground level. And that's where the base landed as well, as at ground level. In the 1950s, they raised the planters almost like to waist high. So the base and foundation was below the planters. And so when the plants were getting water, so was the base structure as well. And so it led to corrosion, and we were able to change that 1915 design by elevating the level of the base. So now if you look at the bases, they're above the planter level, and so that they're not getting a water anymore. The other thing that changed was the ADA path of travel. We made it a little bit wider so that it's more accessible and available to a more general population, as opposed to the way it was prior to our project. And so there is, we do need to follow the historical code and follow Secretary of Interior standards. However, they do let us have a little bit of flexibility in integrating those modern amenities and make it a little bit more accessible for future generations.
Outstanding. Yeah. So my understanding is that this is only one part of a larger project. There's a second phase that's going to take place. Can you talk a little bit about the next phase?
Yeah, I can take that. So you're absolutely right. We looked at this as a two-phase project with our friends of Forever Balboa Park, and they helped with the original designs as well. So they helped fund a good portion of I think about 60% of the original plans documents, and then have been a part of this project, being in this since day one. Going outside, so that's all phase one. Everything within this building is phase one. Going outside into the surrounding gardens, which is what you can see around the fences now, we have a phase two project, which Forever Balboa Park has been fundraising specifically for that in the amount of several $1 million to design, plan, and to build out the gardens surrounding the lily pond, the botanical building, and just the surrounding grounds, as you can see now. So they're right in the heart of that. They started about a month and a half ago, and their plans are to be done in early spring.
Ben?
Oh, I thought you got one.
I do. So
Good.
I just wanted to give you a chance to get in there and talk.
Oh, thank you. I
So-
appreciate it. You look like you had one
I,
on
I
deck, so I was
have
like, I'll get
been
I'll let you
accused
get
of talking too much in my life.
it. That's true.
So the question I have for both of you guys, it looks fantastic in that, but there's always sacrifices in delivering a project. It's always something that you couldn't do that you wanted to do. Is there something out here that the group was talking about that you wanted to be able to incorporate but you couldn't proceed with or add, or were you able to really accomplish everything that you intended to be able to get done?
We were able to accomplish everything we intended to do and more.
Really?
Yeah, so we had a regular partnering throughout the project. Partnering is when we all get together, including the contractor. We create what's called stretch goals or moonshot goals, and that's really what drives the delivery of the project. For example, we had a moonshot goal to win a national award, and to this date, we've won many regional awards. But I just came back from New York. National Council of Structural Engineers Association awarded us a Structural Engineering Excellence Award. So we were a finalist out of 120 national projects. Yeah, we brought home an award.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And then we also had another goal, for example, in partnering with Development Services Department. That's who we get our permit from, to get our building permit within one review cycle. And we did it. To my knowledge, this is the first project that's ever one review cycle, we get our permit. And so we had to do a lot of work on the back end before we even submitted plans. And that's where we're very grateful with other city departments, DSD, in partnering with us and learning about our project before we even submitted.
Another question. Part of this episode, we wanted to not just talk about infrastructure, which is important to both Ben and myself, but we wanted to highlight the importance of investing in our history as a culture, as a city, and some of our most beautiful assets in that. Can you talk a little bit what it means to you guys to be able to work on a project like this and make the investment? And then the second part to this question, probably headed to you, John, and that is, are there other assets in Balboa Park that need similar investment?
Okay. So I'll let you start since I have a twofold question here.
So what's the question again? You want to?
So, Edgar, you work on a lot of other projects that aren't necessarily involved in preserving the history. This one's kind of very, very special. What does it mean to you to be able to be part of something that so many people enjoy, and it's an icon of San Diego?
You know, I think the moment hit me when we brought down the cupola, which is a bell structure.
We'll get a shot of it.
Right above me, yeah. And we were assessing the amount of damage that needed to be repaired and how to put it back up. And as we were looking at the wood members, I was reading the names of some of the construction workers from like 1915, right? From the 1950s as well. And it really hit me in that moment, like, wow, I'm part of history. This project, all of us here are part of a very important historical project that is very important to San Diego. And like I mentioned, we got to represent at a national level in New York, and we're competing against skyrisers from San Francisco and other parts of the country as well. So it really hit me that this project is very, very important, and I was blessed to be a part of it.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, for me, I came in halfway in this project into my current role as Deputy Director for Balboa Park. And, my offices have been in Balboa Park for many years now. So when I would walk into this area and I would see, the first time that the fencing came up and just all the work that was happening in different wings and different sections, I always thought, wow, that's just amazing. And then a year later, after it started, I oversaw Parks and Rec side of this project. And so, it was my opportunity to really dive in and be a part of something so special with the city. This is a great example of partnerships. This is a great example of partnerships within the city departments. It's a great example of the public-private partnership. with working with Forever Balboa Park, and as far as what they've done within this building, the volunteering that they've put into this building, the fundraising that they've put into this building and into phase 2, which is going to be just an amazing set of gardens surrounding this area. So I just knew from day one that I was getting into something really spectacular. Just an excellent project that the city is taking on, and just making the best of it. The other thing is, I think when it really hit me was we were finishing the project right at a year ago. It was at the end of October of 2024, and I was asked to take the project and to accept the project. So if you're an asset owner, it's a big deal, right? That means the contractors mostly done with their work. E&CP in this case, who are our partner, are starting to move on, closing out the project, and now it's my responsibility. And on the facility management side, that's a pretty big responsibility for a $27 million, brand new refurbished building. So I took this big weight on my shoulders, and we needed about a month and a half to get in here, and just our staff needed to understand the building, ensure that the plants are growing, the water's still turning on, the power's still turning on. So we just had this idea of when should we open this building. December nights was coming up. So I just had this idea of like, what a grand time to bring this building to life to the public, but nothing's better than December nights. So that night, or preparing for December nights, and seeing hundreds of people out front waiting to get in for the very first time. We had a few thousand people come through that night. I just knew I was a part of something I couldn't even conceive, and it just this big weight off my shoulders, just seeing everybody come in and knowing the work that E&CP did, DSD, Forever Balboa Park, ECC constructors, just everybody, all of the partners that came into this, project. It was an amazing feeling. I went home that night after the opening of this building and the first night of December nights, and just thought, wow. I think I knew what I was getting to, but I didn't. I didn't until that night. So it was absolutely special.
Makes you feel important about your job and what you do for the public and going forward. That. Are there other facilities in Balboa Park that need similar attention and investment?
There are. There's one thing with this park, as we've talked about, the park's quite old. The surrounding structures are also, and the infrastructure just in general, are also aged. Some from 1915, the building that you're sitting in, some from 1935, and then years after. There are quite a few buildings that have quite a bit of need and have some deferred maintenance that we are slowly attending to. And our partners with the museums and the organizations that are the leaseholds within these buildings are currently working under several projects now. You can see actually the Natural History Museum is working on their roof. Air and Space Museum, Timken's getting ready to go through an expansion project. We're getting ready to work on the HVAC and electrical system at the building across the street from us, which is the Casa del Prado. So we're slowly getting to them with the partners, with our partnered organizations in this park. But there's many aspects that still need to be taken care of and really attended to. Yes.
And Balboa Park as a whole, do you know roughly on average how many visitors you guys get on a typical weekend?
So I've heard on the weekend.
Yeah. Or any number in general?
I don't know that. I have an annual count that I've heard. One. So and it's kind of vast. I've heard between 14 and 20 million people that come into the park. So it's really hard to get an accurate count because it is a free park.
Yeah.
People come into this park. It's a regional asset, but it's also a neighborhood park. People come for the cultural aspect and come into the museums, the mini museums, and then you have others that also come in for the recreation component. So within the city, we have two of the larger facilities for recreation within this park, Balboa Park Activity Center and Municipal Gym. So we have regular programs in there. Then people just walk their dogs or do morning walks. So we're estimating, closer to that 20 million mark.
So when we're on a construction site, right, it's already a lot of things to juggle. It's very hard to kind of manage everything. What were some of the issues that you guys ran into while doing this massive project with 20 million people basically roaming around you?
You want to take that one?
Yeah. Before I answer it, it just reminded me of something we learned in 2024 on the more national level. According to Yelp, Balboa Park was the most photographed location in the entire country.
Really?
Yes. So from all of the Yelp analysis,
Didn't know that.
they did that. Yeah.
And I also heard in some of those analysis that it's the third most visited attraction in the country as well.
I mean, it makes sense. It's funny because, I'm a local here in San Diego, born and raised here. My dad, he actually volunteers at the Model Railroad Museum, so he's been doing that for more years than he'd like me to say, but it's been a long time, and I did it as a kid too and still do it with him. And now I have my little 3-year-old, and, it was funny you'd mentioned with December nights. We didn't go on December nights. We waited a little bit for the crowd to die down. It was, I think, the next weekend after, and then we came to visit the botanical gardens. But it's just kind of funny how, we talk about the historical significance of it, but literally just right there in our family alone, it's 3 generations, and we come here probably at least, once to twice a month between various different things. So
have you ever been to the zoo? The zoo, a lot of people don't really think about it, but the zoo is a section of Balboa Park as well. So you think about all the visitors that come within the zoo, they're still accessing, Balboa Park and, the city's jewel.
Yeah, I think it's a given now. If you're a parent in San Diego, you always have that annual zoo pass. I feel like everyone I know, as soon as they get a kid, it's like, all right, we're getting the zoo pass and walk around the zoo and then walk around Balboa Park. It's just a great spot to spend the day with the family. So.
And when you get older, it's a great gift to give to others in that. But yes, it's fantastic in that. Question for you. 100 years from now, when this is going to get repaired again, refurbished again, are your names someplace hidden somewhere around here? Did you guys... Come on, Edgar.
He's got that look in his eyes.
Put your name somewhere.
Yeah, the public won't see it. Maybe construction crews in the future will.
You're not going to say where it's at?
No, it'll be hidden though. Yeah, it'll be a surprise for them.
All right, a little bit of immortality for you, at least going forward. Yeah.
No, I don't have my name on it, so I live behind the scenes, and I'm happy with that.
That's perfectly all right. Yeah. So, any more questions? Anything we want
to answer the
Yeah, I was going to say, do you mind,
challenges?
how the challenge of working with all of the general public around?
So yeah, it's managing expectations. At one point, we estimated it was going to be a 2-year design and construction period. It ended up morphing into 3 years. It wasn't as challenging as I thought to explain it to the public. We kind of try to stay ahead of the news and ahead of the media by putting out a lot of social media posts. So that was another partnership with our communications department that they really helped us out on. And we were very transparent. We let the public know that, there's going to be a lot more repairs than was previously anticipated. And the public was very understanding. So that was very helpful.
Nice.
Outstanding.
They're just curious, they want to know what's happening behind the fences. They want a glimpse. They want to be the first to have the glimpse. And so, again, going back to December nights, they got that glimpse. And that was really fun to watch that and see the joy that they brought.
So, and we're going to start winding this down. Any last message, message you guys have to give to the general public on a project like this or about Balboa Park? Investments needed to be made in historical structures.
Yeah, I think the public, the city invested the resources that we needed. At one point, our estimate was $22 million project. At its worst point, when we started uncovering a lot of the unforeseen repairs, it ballooned up to $28.5 million. That was our budget. And we landed the plane at 26.5, so saved the client a little bit of money. But the resources were there for us to invest in the history, into this historical building, and I mean, quite frankly, I think, like John mentioned, there's a lot more that needs to be put into Balboa Park, and I hope the public realizes that, and with this podcast, they learned a little bit more about what we do and why it's important, and that we continue to do that.
Outstanding. Sean?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand just the positives that we can bring into a project like this. And I know there's Edgar was alluding to up to 3 years. Some of that was rain delays and weather, so some of those things. So patience has to come with that as well. But when you have good partnerships, again, the state grants, so all the different types of funding that came into this project, regional park improvement funds, capital outlay, the donations from Forever, Balboa Park, good things come in big sizes, right? And the city really did their due diligence on this project in a time when it was difficult, to bring a project like this to the table. And so I'm just really happy to see it. If the public hasn't seen this project, hasn't come in here and seen the botanical building, it's free. It's open 7 days a week. That's another thing to point out. In the past, we were open 6 days a week. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was to open this to the public and ensure that the public was in here and had access to it. Increased accessibility. It's here. This is your gift from the city. So thank you.
Well, I find it a little ironic. We're actually getting the 10-minute warning because the public is about to come flooding through these doors and experience this wonderful botanical garden that you guys helped restore. So I just want to say, Edgar and John, thank you guys so much for taking the time to meet with us today. We really appreciate it, and thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, enjoy.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
You guys did it. Look at that.